Alright, in this fifth session of week 7, we will talk about between sushi bars and Korean restaurant. From Korean migrant perspective, which one is better? Because this explains why so many Koreans are engaged in sushi business in North America and elsewhere. For Korean migrants, particularly in America, in the 21st century, opening sushi bars is a popular option for many reasons. And this was resulted from my own interviewing many Korean sushi bar owners in California and in Vancouver, Canada, British Columbia, and they told me the following. They say opening a sushi bar can be much cheaper, easier, and it can be way more profitable option for them than opening a Korean restaurant in general. And now this is before year 2010s, when after which Korean food became much popular than before. So now it may not apply because all of my interviews here was before 2010. Anyway, in this image you see the typical sushi bar in Japan. And now that is a famous one in Tokyo, but anyway, at the top you see the settings in Japanese sushi bar. In Japan, sushi bars, even though it is a fast food, there are a variety of cheaper version, but very expensive version. Cheaper versions include like a very conveyor belt sushi, the so-called the kaiten sushi bars. But one like that, on the image, the chef is sitting or waiting and meeting their customers at counter, which Japanese call it counter. And these chefs are very well trained. And they are probably the best people the restaurant has. And most experienced people normally keep at the counter. And their assistants are working inside the kitchen or cooking rice and making miso shiru and making sushi and so on. But the most senior and most trained ones are the ones standing behind the counter, and customers would sit in front of them. And quite frequently, they can engage in conversation with their customers. And customers will directly order, I want this kind of sushi, and the chefs will prepare it right in front of them and serve. So that's the typical the Japanese sushi bar setting. And the image below is, of course, that's Korean kimbap making, but it is not. It is California. It is a Japanese sushi with some avocados and so on, developed in California, in the west coast of America. So in this slide, we are comparing a very luxurious, very well-designed Japanese sushi bar setting and the Korean Hansik setting. They're not real. They are designing companies, the sample. And on your left, you see typical sushi bar setting in Japan. And sushi bars are located inside of big restaurant behind the counter, and customers will sit in front of chefs, and the chefs, professional chefs, would prepare for each order. They will make sushi on the spot. And on the right, this very nice, luxurious looking Hansik restaurant. Customers sit and table, and they have grills and so on, and that's how they are served. As I said, many Korean owners of sushi bars, they say it is cheaper to open and simpler to run. And what does it mean? They say sushi business gives them more options in terms of size of the shop, because sushi bar does not really require much space if the owner doesn't have much capital. But Korean restaurants normally require at least certain space, because people are served in the restaurant and food is carried to them. And sushi, one can make sushi in a very small space. And also, sometimes they can sell them over the counter as a takeaway food. While Korean restaurants, they typically require some tables, seats, and much larger kitchen, because compared to preparing sushi, the preparing Korean food with all the side dishes and so on require much larger space in kitchen and more staff. So sushi, compared to Korean dishes, requires less cooking and fewer ingredients than Korean dishes in general, and because of particularly Korean food requires a few banchan, the side dishes. For the same reason, typically Korean restaurants require more staff and longer hours than sushi bars. Often, this image on your right, it shows a sushi bar in Auckland, New Zealand. And as you see, that sushi bar, no one is sitting, because it is just a small store in a shopping mall, and the passers-by would just buy sushi, which is already prepared, already there. So, and the price is so cheap and anyone can afford. So you would just pick what you want in a box, and you pay it, and you go and you eat. Korean food, however, Hansik restaurant, this kind of setting is extremely difficult or nearly impossible. So that's the benefit of running a sushi bar. In this session, we have compared from Korean migrants' perspective, what is better or what is more profitable, what is easier between running a Japanese sushi bar or Korean Hansik restaurant. And in our next session, we will talk about some important question of authenticity of sushi, or in the process of globalization of sushi. All right, so that was the end of week 7, session 5. Jongwon, do you have any questions or anything that we can discuss about the session?
Yeah, so I do have lots of things that I want to talk with you. And I do have one question regarding the session 5. So it was quite interesting that you understood the spread of sushi bar, particularly in the Koreatown located in the US from the perspective of business. And I do have a question regarding the reason why opening sushi bar was a popular option for Korean immigrants in the US in the 2000s. So for example, you explained that running a sushi bar could be a cheaper and easier option than opening a Korean restaurant in general. Rather, sushi business gives more options to the owner in terms of size of the shop, because it does not require an ample space as Korean restaurants normally do.
That's right.
Yes.
If necessary.
Yeah. So given your explanation, I soon realized that the size, the space of Korean restaurants is generally much bigger than Japanese restaurants, which usually have more like individual or like small size seats for the customers.
That's right.
Yeah, so my question is, what are the social cultural factors or like backgrounds that make Koreans generally tend to operate their food business, restaurants, in a wider space compared to Japan? And what are the implications of sushi bar in terms of Japanese culinary culture or habits?
I see. Well, sushi bar has many different kinds, and from very cheap, just a takeout place, to very luxurious upmarket one.
Yeah.
And of course, the luxurious upmarket ones are big and very nice. So there are variety, and that's why for any Korean migrants who wants to enter into this business, depending on how confident they are, depending on how much capital they can invest, they can choose from very cheap one versus very expensive one. So that's a great option for any person who wants to enter into the business. Yeah.
And I also think that I personally believe that the space of the restaurant might be impacted by some K-food culture, like traditional K-food culture, because different to the Japanese food culture, Koreans tend to like share their banchan and stew on their like table, right? So that might be the reason why that Koreans tend to eat much wider space for their like dinner and also like for their meal. So so compared to the Korean food, Japanese food are more like individualized.
That's right.
And they do not tend to share their banchans.
That's right.
Yeah. So
and also, Jongwon, I think in Korea, eating alone is still a little bit socially weird, awkward.
Yeah.
But countries like Japan, eating alone has been already long practice. So people normally go to eat alone. So you don't need to share anything with anyone. But Koreans in general, they tend to go either 2, 3, 4 people together. So that will definitely require different setting.
Yeah, definitely. So for the audiences who are interested in both Korean and Japanese culture, I want to recommend them to search about more individualized Japanese food culture and like sharing K-food culture. And if you search about the term 혼밥, that might be explained, that might be more helpful for your understanding, I guess.
That's
so
right.
that might be one of my recommendations to the audiences who are interested in both Japanese and Korean food culture.
Yes, good point. In 혼밥, in Korean, it kind of implies abnormality in a sense.
Yeah,
but in Japan and in New Zealand and elsewhere, that's totally normal.
Yeah. So thank you.
Well, thank you. That's a really good point. And now we will conclude this week 8, session 5.